Hey guys, this is Eric Crownover from Nerdy Geek Talk, the source for all your nerdy geeky needs, here with episode 2 of Why So Super. And last week, on the first episode, I focused on the villain Carnage and what makes him so super. Well, we are sticking with a mostly villain today, in the form of Deathstroke. Now, if you are not aware of who Deathstroke is, quick little recap of his history. So he's a DC character, not Marvel, just to get that out of the way first. He's ex-military. He became an assassin. He went through a super soldier program, sort of like Captain America, not exactly, but kind of a similar thing, somewhat regenerative too. But either way, he is an ex. The most important thing is that he's an ex-military assassin. And what happened with him is that he started becoming the Deathstroke, and he would be hired to do, jobs as an assassin. The problem was, to teach him a lesson for what he was doing, his kid got his throat slit. So not such a happy family story. And after that, you can imagine his wife was not too happy. So his wife shot him in the head. She tried to kill him. All she did was shoot out his eye, hence why his mask only has one eye holes, because he can only see with one eye. His other eye is kind of gone. He wears an eye patch whenever he doesn't have that mask on. Little fun fact. Um, but yeah, so that's basically most of his history. Now, the thing is, why is he so super? And to ask that question, first I'm going to ask, why is he so obsessed with? Like, why are we as readers and just consumers of, comic media, why are we so obsessed with Deathstroke? Because he's never the main character of anything, but he comes back a lot. Like, a lot. He's pretty important. Now, one thing that has to do with its legacy that doesn't have to do with DC would be the character Deadpool. If you aren't aware of this, Deadpool was essentially started off. He's clearly become his own thing, but he started off as a ripoff of Deathstroke. Marvel's essentially, they wanted him to be their mercenary type character. Deathstroke clearly went off in his own direction, is entirely different now. But, fun fact, Deadpool was certainly intended to be Marvel's Deathstroke. He just rocketed off into his own thing, eventually for other reasons, which, we may get into at some point if he appears on an episode of Why So Super. But this is about Deathstroke. Another thing with him is that he's a legacy. His kids, it's complicated because not all the kids are dead, not all that, there's a lot of stuff changing in the comics now in terms of his kids going back as superheroes, but the main one is that his daughter is the Ravager. If you could tell by the costume, clearly it is a Deathstroke inspired costume. She's not hiding her heritage. She is very much the daughter of Deathstroke as Ravager. And so that's not necessarily what has to do. She's not as big of a character as Deathstroke is, not even close. But I do find it interesting that his legacy is something that's passed down by a generation, not to someone else that he trains, but to a daughter, which is interesting because it's not how a lot of legacies work with superheroes. Typically, someone else who has the same powers and uh, doesn't really know the hero becomes the apprentice and then becomes the hero, essentially. It's very rare that the actual biological offspring of the hero becomes the next one. And not that she is Deathstroke, but look at her costume. She's essentially a female Deathstroke. Um, but Deathstroke keeps appearing over and over, as I said. Teen Titans, several cartoons, several video games like Arkham Origins, and even in the movies he'll be coming up, which I'm very excited for. He was supposed to have someone role in Justice League. I don't think he does now. That'll be out in a week, so maybe he will. I really hope he appears as some cameo or something, but I think they just announced a Deathstroke movie on its own, which as someone who is very much obsessed with Deathstroke, I'm very happy about. I hope it goes very well, but we'll see. Either way, it's undeniable that he's showing up in a lot of stuff. He's a character that people like to see. I think one reason that people really like to see him, what makes him so super, is that he's more of a Batman equivalent than your typical Batman villain. Not that he is a Batman villain, he fights the Teen Titans a lot too, but in terms of a villain that is close to Batman's skill and physical abilities, he he is pretty darn close. Now, in some continuities versus others, it depends on how close he is. In some versions, I'd say that he's better, that he is more deadly than Batman because he's willing to kill. That's one thing. But they are regardless, they are closer than most villains. A lot of villains of Batman's are either all skill and no, physical, like no bronze, like it's all brain, no bronze, or they're all bronze, no brain, like, Bane. Not that Bane's completely an idiot, but by no means does he match Batman's thinking abilities at all. Um, and then you have like the Riddler or the Penguin. They don't come near Batman's physical abilities, not even close. Deathstroke is essentially that almost that sweet spot that Batman has, where he's really darn smart and really darn good in terms of training. He also has the advantage that he is very much willing to kill. He's an assassin. Um, I think another reason people really like him is because he's essentially a more realistic Batman. Now, he didn't go through the same situation as Batman because he didn't watch his parents die in front of him. He went through something that I would personally argue is worse. Now, you can argue on your own everything, whether or not it is, but seeing your parents gunned down as a child is obviously would be one of the most traumatic things you can experience. Seeing your son's throat slit and him die because of you and you're supposed to be protecting him, he's your child, I would argue is worse. And then his wife shot him in the head afterwards. I wouldn't say that's as bad. It's clearly pretty bad. He has a messed up family life. But I would argue the child dying is worse than your parents dying because you're responsible for them. That is god awful to have either of those things happen to you. But would you I'm not going to ask which would you rather because it's still just messed up. But your parents are not someone that you're responsible for protecting at that young of an age. As a parent, you are responsible for protecting your little children, and his little child got his throat slit. So I would argue he has the more traumatic family life, and that he's turned to not being a hero, not stopping that, but essentially he gave into his hate almost. Not he gave into the dark side. But that's not always the case because a lot of the time he ends up being somewhat of an anti-hero. Not in a kind of selfish way a lot of the times, but he's had several moments where he's certainly on the edge of a bad guy. I'd say he's more of a bad guy than an anti-hero, but he has certainly had a decent amount of anti-hero moments where he will team up. He's not an idiot. If it works in his best interest to team up with the good guys, he's not like, oh, I'm pure evil, I must kill you no matter what. He'll do it. But he's also had some moments where he does good things. And it's certainly shifted that way, I think, because the readers like him so much, they're shifting him in the direction of being a hero. Now, in the current Rebirth comic, he has become a full-fledged superhero and is leading his own, I believe, Titans team. I'm not going to get into that a whole lot because it is brand new. We don't know exactly how it's going to go, but I do find it very interesting. Um, and so, what makes him so super? He's like the Batman that had a little bit more of a messed up family life and gave in to that hate, which in all honesty I think is more realistic than Batman. So I think that he's like a realistic Batman for one. Hard to say realistic because it's superheroes, but still I'd say he's more relatable. That's what I would say, more relatable because I wouldn't say watching your family makes you want to go be a superhero. It probably makes you want to go kill them, which I think is more the Deathstroke route than Batman. Um, and so now he's on a hero's journey, which is pretty interesting. The other things that stand out about him, about why he's so super, the design. Look at it. Come on, it is cool. Now, he's gone through several design changes. He has his classical design. Arkham Origins is a more armor type of design. He showed up in the TV shows. Arrow, that's something I forgot to mention in things that he's been showing up. He showed up in Arrow. He's a major part there. The movies are having their own look. He's tending to become more military type, like armor stuff. Now, not like full-fledged armor, but he has body armor. I'd say relatively similar to Batman, maybe a little heavier because I mean he is working with guns a lot more and stuff like that. So it's it's tough to say that he has the coolest character design ever, but it is, I think, pretty fair to say that has certain design elements that are pretty neat and unique, especially the mask. He only has one eye. Like that is so cool. I think, at least, that he has half the mask just covers his eye. And the other half, and the fact that it's half orange, half black, it just looks neat, the 50-50. Um, his weapons are neat. His that he chooses to use his swords, guns, all that. It's like Batman, but to another level. Again, because he doesn't have the moral restraints Batman does. But I'd say character design is certainly something that makes him stand out. That mask is pretty eye-catching and memorable. I don't think that you'd forget him super easily. It's pretty obvious when you look at him that that is Deathstroke and that is not someone else. You don't mistake him for someone else. He has the 50-50 mask. It doesn't look like anyone else. I mean, no, it doesn't look like Deadpool. I was going to say that. Maybe you can mistake it for Deadpool. Not anymore. Maybe the original Deadpool, but how it is now, not so much. And the other thing that is really, really neat about him is just the fact that he, how do I put this? So basically, he's a realistic Batman. He's really cool. Second, he's somewhat of an anti-hero, but not exactly. He keeps coming back because we're obsessed with him. I think it's because he's like a more realistic Batman. Really, really cool character design. And last but not least, totally forgot my last point. Oh, last but not least is certainly his how daring he is. He is not someone that just runs away from a fight. I mean, again, somewhat depends on the continuity, but he's fought Superman. Um, what human do you know that'll fight Superman? Batman? I'm not saying no one else has, but who else is willing to just go for it? And not that he destroyed Superman, but he's had several encounters with him. He certainly did not lose bad in terms of, fighting off Superman, whether it's outsmarting him or using a weapon against him. He's done it more than once, and he's certainly not been destroyed, which is something to say when you're going against Superman. So I think that his daring and just how confident he is, the air of confidence he has, is something that not all superheroes slash supervillains have. A lot of them have doubts. You never see a doubt from Deathstroke. So, no doubt. Super cool design. Uh, really messed up life, so he's more like a realistic Batman, and he's the sweet spot of skill in combat, essentially. Skills in terms and smarts. I mean, skills and smarts are kind of similar, and then also combat skills. So those are the things that make him so super. He stands out against anyone, and he almost always makes top lists in terms of people's favorite characters, and I can understand why. He is certainly one of my favorite characters. He's not as popular as a lot of different heroes and villains and stuff, but he is certainly not someone that you just forget about, at least to me. He is not generic. I don't think he is very similar to a lot of other Batman villains or Teen Titans villains. And so I think he is certainly very memorable and awesome, and that is why I think Deathstroke is so super. So thanks for watching. Bye. Oh, like, comment, subscribe, and check me out on Twitter at Eric Crowbar. Thanks. Bye for real this time.